MagMongoSlade.
Welcome. So let's talk about this thing here. The Wrestling Media Rumble is all out there. We're out. Everybody is talking about the Ariel Helwani thing. Ariel Helwani goes on his show, airs out Tony Khan, goes on Twitter, puts holes in Bixen Span and Coach. It is insane what's been happening. There's been a lot going on. Everybody's taking sides. Some people are ducking, trying to avoid the strays. Other people are jumping in the middle of it. They're trying to do their best. So in this video, we're probably going to talk about it from the beginning. All right, to make sure everybody's on the same page. But we will be talking about Ariel Helwani, his appearance on SmackDown, which led to the Tony Khan comment, which led to WWE doubling down, which led to Bixen Span, which led to Coach, which led to other people, and it's on. It's on, okay? Okay, so what occurred? Ariel Helwani went to SmackDown and Elimination Chamber. It was in Montreal, where he's from. He did sort of a roving reporter style thing for WWE. He was on camera, just holding a microphone, hanging out in the crowd. At this point, Tony Khan called him a fraud, said on Twitter, because he had an outburst. Then things got real. Bixen Span started to attack Ariel Helwani. We're going to do the Bixen Span thing later. But then WWE doubled down the next day. They put Ariel Helwani together with GSP. Just be George St. Pierre, for those of you who are not MMA fans. And Michael Cole threw a shot at Tony Khan, saying that Ariel Helwani asks the tough questions even if you don't want to answer. That just led to meltdowns. Now everybody's saying he's a shill and all this kind of stuff. So Ariel Helwani went on his show on Monday to discuss the situation and to start to begin what he called 10-7, guys. That's another MMA term. It's a boxing term too. When you lose a round so badly, you actually don't get 9 points. You get 7 points. So let's just go through some of what Ariel Helwani said. I'm gonna play some of the audio, and then we're gonna go to the first person to lose their mind, which is Bixen Span. All right, you ready?
The amazing thing is how the whole thing spread backstage. Everyone was, you see the tweet, you see the tweet, you see the tweet. And like, I've just been here for 4 hours. Like, I don't even know a lot of these people. This is amazing. How could he have done? Was that really him? What blah, 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 blah. I was like, well, yeah, I guess it was really him. He doesn't follow me, but I guess it was really him. And I still feel kind of bad for Tony Schiavone that he was insulted in the process.
Wait,
bizarre. So then I do the second one. Yes, go ahead.
Wouldn't you say, like, the questions you were asking him in that ill-fated interview, wouldn't that be what journalism is? Wouldn't that be like the actual proof in the pudding of like what journalism is supposed to be?
This fucking guy doesn't know what journalism is. He has no idea.
He wants PR.
He's no different than Dana.
That actually hurt a lot of people's feelings when he said that Tony Khan was no different than Dana White. But here's the thing, and I want to discuss this because every time people talk about this whole issue about Brawl Out, which I'm quite sick to death of talking about, people say, well, Tony Khan couldn't talk about it because it was a legal issue. Like, Vince McMahon being accused of rape is not a legal issue, but let's discuss that real quick. Who got arrested? Did CM Punk get arrested? Did the Elite get arrested? Did Kenny Omega get arrested? Did the guy who bit that guy, I was about to call him Adam Pearce, but Ace Steel, did he get arrested? As far as we know, the police were not even called. There was no lawsuits on record. What legal issue came out of Brawl Out? What was the legal issue, for the record? Since we're hiding behind that it was a legal issue, like he couldn't talk about it, what legal issue was there? I understand it being a legal issue if somebody got arrested and you don't want to discuss it. I understand it might be a legal issue if there was a lawsuit filed and you don't want to discuss it. But if there's no lawsuit on record, there's nothing criminal on record, you can talk about it. is just an excuse to not talk about it. And asking a question that might get you sued or might get you arrested, I understand why you would not answer it. But Ariel Helwani did not ask any questions to Tony Khan that would get Tony Khan sued or arrested. He asked him how he felt in that situation as he sat right there next to CM Punk. How did you feel in that moment? Oh, I can't talk about that. What do you mean? You can't talk about your feelings? All you had to do is say, it didn't feel very good, or I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and then that was it. So now that leads to this statement where Ariel Helwani says basically Tony Khan wants PR. That's what Eric Jackman, I know his name because I'm looking at him on the screen, right? That's what he's saying. That Tony Khan doesn't want an interview, he wants public relations. He wants to be able to go out there and promote the good word of AEW, which is not a problem. But you sat down to do an interview with an interviewer who asked you a question that was not even really all that tough. Especially once you say, well, I can't comment. Okay, well, he asks a different version of that question. Well, can't comment. All right, so he asks a question that's about the same subject, but not about any of the principles in the subject. He didn't say, what did you do to CM Punk? What did you do to the Elite? Yada, yada, yada. He said, how do you feel? And everybody's like, I can't believe he's asking such personal questions. Like he asked what the guy blood type is or something like this. He asked the guy simply, how did he feel in that moment as he was sitting there listening to that? It was ridiculous. It was not a big deal at all. Come on.
What I thought about tweeting back to him was, Dana's not going to shag you, mate, because I know he's just trying to, curry favor with his idol Dana White. I
think this was a little.
To be fair, Vince is very, very friendly with Dana White. Very friendly. Like Vince McMahon and Dana White, they hang out. They are hanging out. This is the first I've ever heard of Tony Khan being friendly with Dana White. But I know Vince and Dana White, they're tight. They're like peas in a pod.
But I thought it might have been too much of a deep cut for the wrestling audience. You know what I mean? But like he's just trying to do that thing, and it hasn't worked for Dana, and it ain't going to work for Tony Khan. I can assure you.
He should want that.
What was it?
To the point, like he's a promoter. Like that's what he should. Like he shouldn't be seeking journalistic integrity. Like that's not what this program is. Anyway, my other thing is, isn't it kind of wild that, like, to your point, like you've been there 4 hours, all the people in the locker room are talking about it. Tony Khan is taking this shot at you. Like it's almost like you're not even like part of this world. You're not like you're dropped into it, and it's like he's solely focused on you. He could have been watching that show, said nothing, said anything about the wrestling. Those guys suck. These guys suck. It's you specifically who are not related to this in any way, except for this one night. It's crazy.
To tweet that. For him
Insanity.
to tweet that, how mad did he have to get? Like, tweet that. The funniest, the best part.
Now everybody laughing at him.
Hashtag AEW Rampage. No one's watching that.
Yeah.
All right, so part of this was that oh God, I lost my train of thought. Oh geez. Ariel Helwani did talk about how everybody was kind of laughing at this guy backstage. Everybody was laughing at Tony Khan backstage, and that really set some people off too. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit. But let's talk about Ariel Helwani being a wrestling journalist, which he now says that he isn't, which is technically true. He's more of an MMA interviewer. He's not really that much of a journalist anymore anyway. He spends most of his time with headphones on, not really going around chasing stories, but here's what he had to say.
The thing, and then that explodes. And then the best part is all the freakazoids now come to, Tony's defense and start to tell me about my career, about my life, about journalism, about this and that. Let me explain to you, because poor Dave Meltzer I see continuing to get compared to me. I am not Dave Meltzer. I have never claimed to be Dave Meltzer. I don't cover pro wrestling for a living. I don't have a wrestling show. I don't have a wrestling site. I don't have a wrestling newsletter. Why do you guys keep comparing me to this guy? Because I may be that guy in MMA? I've never been that guy in this sport. I interview, by the way, just let me tell you guys this. When I signed with BT Sport, the sole thing that I was hired to do mainly was UFC. Go back to the announcement. It was UFC. The problem was someone at the UFC, who, wasn't happy about it, threw a fit, went crazy, did all this stuff, and they were like, all right, well, I guess we can use him in WWE. That was never the plan. So,
So, Ariel Helwani,
great, and I love
he was hired by BT Sport as the UFC guy, but he's banned from UFC events due to his spats with Dana White. So that's how he kind of got on WWE duty. But he still doesn't run a wrestling-based channel or a wrestling-based product. He doesn't. He's more MMA, but he's a wrestling fan. You know, there's a thing called crossover fans. You know, this is going to become important later, as Bixen's fans going to hold on doggedly to this point, but which is typical of him. But let me the guy finish his thought.
And kind of opened this, thing in my brain, like, oh, I could do more of this. Point is, I've never considered myself a wrestling journalist. So I don't know why all of you are all up in arms. I'm having fun. I'm living my life. I feel sorry if you can't have this kind of fun. It was great.
So now Jonathan Snowden is a nut job wrestling journalist, but he even kind of nailed this thing in terms of other people's responses to this situation. Basically, he didn't say Bixen Span, but he was talking about Bixen Span. It's one of those kinds of things where he didn't say he was talking about Bixen Span, but he's talking about Bixen Span. So here's what he said. I loved Ariel Helwani's passion on the WWE Chamber pre-show. It should go without saying, but there is absolutely nothing morally or ethically wrong with him appearing on WWE programming. Love seeing my MMA contemporaries like Ariel and Luke Thomas out there winning. And then he continues, being jealous of a colleague's success is wasted energy. Spend that time and effort making sure you're doing all you can to make your own project special. No one else's success is taking something away from you. You can only control your own life. Make it a worthwhile one. Again, Jonathan Snowden is a nut job. He's one of the craziest loony bin gym guys on the internet. But as a fellow MMA historian, along with Ariel Helwani, he's making a somewhat decent point. And it really kind of speaks a lot to people and how they're reacting to Ariel Helwani. And it's the same way, again, we said this before, how they reacted to Ryan Satin. It's partially moral outrage, but it's also, a lot of it is jealousy. Why does he get to be the guy? Because he's willing to shill and all this kind of stuff. And it's not really fair. And, it's not really about these guys in particular as much as it is, about the person who's attacking them and their personal animus, or making themselves persona non grata. All right, so Ariel Helwani, he says what he says. This was before he said what he said. What I just played, the audio was from MMA Hour or whatever, which came out, I believe, on Monday. Over the weekend, Jonathan Coachman, who was in WWE as the coach, actually attacked Ariel Helwani over the internet. He said, and I quote in a series of tweets, by the way. So here's what he said. Ariel is not allowed in the building for UFC events, and ESPN clearly didn't know when they hired him, which is why he only lasted one contract. Also, the mockery he makes of pro wrestling, like he could ever do it, not only upsets me, but a lot of people actually in the business. He says, it's really cool to see an event that Ariel can actually get in the building for. I would be excited also. If you don't know, now you know. This is in response to Ariel Helwani taking a picture with George St. Pierre. They were together on Elimination Chamber. Then he continues. He says, because if you make this statement, you can't possibly understand what it takes to do it 52 weeks a year and traveling 250 days a year and be willing to take an ass whooping every single night. That's in the business. That's in response to somebody saying that Ariel Helwani was an outsider. And apparently Ariel Helwani had made some comments about Booker T or something like that. And this is what Coach is going off about. So, in continuing, Coach said they will use anyone, especially if that person is from Montreal. Trust me, Triple H is not having an issue is way different than a regular wrestling. I don't know what he means by that. Triple H has had a show to promote, and they know Fanboy will do whatever they want him to do. Later, he says, I know the whole thing. Believe me, I saw that too. I have been on both sides, an interviewer and in talent in the ring. You either have to be one or the other. And when you are 140 pounds and won't get physical ever, then don't talk trash and be a journalist. Then he says, when he got called bitter, because he's attacking Ariel Helwani, he says, over 20 years on and off, 16 WrestleManias, actually participated in 2 Royal Rumbles. I think I'm qualified, not bitter. I just respect the business, whether I am still in it or not. Wrestlers can't stand it when an outsider comes in and doesn't respect their space. And he says, when you do this for a living, like I did for well over 10 years, look back at the last year, talking trash to actual wrestlers like Booker T on a talk show when he is 140 pounds soaking wet. He is a fan. That's it. He is not and never will be. Fans are not WWE talent. Now, there's nothing wrong with what he said. Fans are not talent. That is absolutely true. I don't have a problem with that. You know, my issue is why so mad, bro? Like, where's the vitriol coming from? Why does there seem to be so much anger? And that kind of went unanswered. You know, I know he said he felt disrespected, but I don't know. I would think Booker T would be the one who would be disrespected, wouldn't he? I don't know. But here's what Ariel Helwani said, and it was probably like 2 or 3 days later, because he was enjoying Elimination Chamber and waiting to. He had done the MMA Hour already, talking about Tony Khan, and so basically he just came on Twitter to respond to some people. He says, quote, and if you're wondering why I didn't respond to Coach on the show, well, my rule is you have to be at least a 1.7 on the relevant meter to warrant one on air. The guy who hosts PFL betting segments from his basement in his men's warehouse doesn't make the cut. Sorry, Bap. And he said, guys still mad. DC, I guess that means Daniel Cormier, turned him down and chose to do a show with me instead. Maybe he just wants Dana to really like him. Who knows? Never met him. Not sure why he's so obsessed with me. But it's going on 3 years now and it's getting a little creepy. Sheesh. Then he says, when he went on his little tweet storm on me 2 years ago, you wouldn't believe the ESPN employees who hit me up about what a nightmare it was to work with him. Some chutzpah, especially after the baggage he's carrying around. But I get it. Jealousy would make you do weird things. Crazy. Absolutely, absolutely crazy. But it didn't stop there, of course, because we know that crazy comes in many different bundles. And probably the craziest bundle out there on the internet is one David Bixenspan, who looks like he is just permanently anxious, perpetually stuck at 17 years old. A guy who comes across like McLovin from Superbad mixed with, the fat kid from Superbad. It's just not good. It's awful. We're about to be here for a long time talking about Bixenspan, okay? So here's what Bixenspan tweeted out Friday night. We can't trust Ariel Helwani when he says he's not being paid by WWE when he lied about the UFC paying him for years. Even if WWE isn't paying him, he's still appearing as an explicit part of the show or performance, despite having reported on them weeks ago. It's a conflict. His report that he's discussing, the report, him reporting on WWE, is simply Ariel saying there is no truth to the rumor that Saudi Arabia was buying WWE. That's really all that that was his reporting. The in-depth reporting that Ariel Helwani did for WWE. It's pretty nonsensical, if you catch my drift. It's pretty ridiculous, So let's continue. He continues, same night. Well, how about that? Ariel Helwani has graduated to appearing on camera on SmackDown holding a WWE branded mic as a roving reporter. I'm sure this is all very ethical and has nothing at all to do with any reporting he's done on WWE in the last 5 or so weeks. Any reporting. He's merely said what pretty much everybody with a functioning brain cell said, that he hadn't heard anything about WWE being sold to Saudi Arabia. That's all Ariel Helwani said. He continues to why he's being so doggedly disrespectful for Ariel Helwani, who's done nothing to him. Big Suspense says, because Ariel pretends to be an unbiased journalist when he's covering WWE and AEW. And then Tony Khan calls Ariel Helwani a fraud, which, of course, is the tweet that caused the entire dust up in the beginning. Big Span tweets out, I love it. I fucking love it. Seriously, he's 100% right about this. And doubtly so, given the interview bullshit a few months ago. You know, when Ariel Helwani asked him how did he feel during Brawl Out, because it was apparently some big legal issue. It was Watergate, because some guys got into a fight in the locker room. It's got to be under lock and key. I mean, what the hell? What? Anyway, somebody says, Big Suspan continues. Ariel withheld for years that he was being paid by the UFC while covering them. Very, quote, upfront and honest of him. This was in response to wrestling journalist Dave Shearer, who we're going to hear from again later, who actually gave a thumbs up to Ariel Helwani. He says, I never met the man that I remember. Hey, I'm an old guy. I drink a lot. But I have nothing but respect for Ariel Helwani. He's a great reporter, upfront and honest. If Tony Khan wants to call him names in a hissy fit when he's already knows the real deal, I stand with Ariel. So, Big Suspan is not happy about Dave Shearer being on the side of Ariel Helwani. He's not happy about that, but he was even less happy with Ariel Helwani's response. So Ariel Helwani was asked about David Bixenspan after he went off on Coach. And he says, Helwani says, quote, the guy who was sweating profusely and couldn't spit out a question that one time I saw him at a Bellator presser, in between also telling me he was a big fan. Yeah, he's a 1.1. Sorry, BAP. Which means he's a 1.1 on the relevant scale. So Big Suspan is now pretty angry. All right, he's upset, and the Twitter fingers are just doing what they do. Big Suspan says nobody was, quote, profusely sweating other than the reporter who was drunkenly sexually harassing women who were working as media at a Bellator MSG card. If I remember correctly, I told Ariel I gained respect for him. R.E. how he handled that situation. Then he says, I definitely didn't say I was a big fan. Don't remember if I asked a question during the presser. If I remember correctly, I got most of what I needed from the one-on-ones with the fighters. I think I raised my hand for Coker, but didn't get called on. He answered my questions after when I said I was with Sherdog. Then he turns around and he starts talking about Ariel Helwani doing work for WWE and whether he was paid or not. Because apparently this is now a thing for Big Suspan. Did he get paid to do the voiceover work or not? This really matters to Big Suspan. So here's what Big Suspan said. He said they didn't pay him for the voiceover work. And I kind of doubt Dave took payment for those talking head appearances. And WWE performers are non-unions. So why would they be required to pay him? You think that he would do the voiceover work for free? Well, it's possible, I guess. But what does WWE performers not having a union have to do with whether he gets paid or not? Those two things are completely different things. You know, now this, of course, opened a whole kettle of beans about this whole thing about if you appear at all on a wrestling show or a wrestling branded show or something like that, should you get paid for it? Which I think you should. You know, if you do work, you should get paid for that work. But it's your work, so if you want to do it for free, go for it. And that's up to you. I don't think it matters that much anyway. You know, it's up to the person. I'm pretty sure Ariel Helwani is a big fan. He probably would have done it for free. That being said, when various guys pop up on these documentaries, you got to ask the question, are they being paid? People have said Dave Meltzer does not get paid to do WWE. things. Now, there have been wrestling media figures who have popped up in WWE branded documentaries. There have been people who have been popped up in documentaries like Dark Side of the Ring. Some of these people have probably had to have been paid. You know, it is what it is. Quid pro quo. You taking up somebody's time, you probably should pay them. But that has nothing to do with wrestlers not having a union. Here's Bixby Span continuing. Ariel completely omitted any direct reference to what he actually said in his clapback. I wonder if he got a strongly worded email this morning, perhaps from Jacksonville. I guess saying that Ariel is going to get sued for calling Tony Khan a snowman. Seems kind of petty, but, you know, Tony Khan is a small man, and, you know, small men have, you know, small tempers, I guess you could say. Bixby Span continues. Is it really a good idea to admit that before you decided to obliquely call Tony Khan a cokehead, you considered tweeting that you thought he insulted you to try to get Dana White to have sex with him? Who cares? It's not literal. It's not. None of this is literal. All right. He doesn't literally think that Tony Khan wants Dana White to have sex with him. I don't think he literally believes that. Come on. Bixby Span continues. It seems that Ariel Helwani's response is pretending he didn't do original reporting on a major WWE story last month, reporting that they may very well have affected the stock price. Keeps claiming that he's not a wrestling reporter as his main defense of being paid by WWE. Then the tweet of all tweets, the one that I actually was so nutty I put it in the community post. Say, isn't a country that doesn't think Sami Zayn should exist a leading candidate to buy WWE? I'm sure that didn't influence last night's booking decision at all, meaning that Saudi Arabia's public fund or whatever, being a possible buyer of WWE is one of the reasons why Sami Zayn lost. Look, just because Saudi Arabia and Syria kind of go after each other, I don't think that has anything to do with the individuals. Individuals are individuals. Governments argue amongst each other. They just happen to kill individuals in the process. I don't think Saudi Arabia personally has anything against one Sami Zayn. Okay, I don't think they have to worry about Sami Zayn in particular screwing up their wrestling program. That being said, it's Looney Bin Jim to think this is the reason Sami Zayn lost. It's stupid. It's quite stupid. All right, so Dave Shearer is back. He's going to make another comment, this time from the Q&A section of his site at PW Insider. The question reads, I listened to Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez on their radio show say that Tony Khan was right. Ariel Helwani is a hypocrite and a fraud for appearing on WWE TV. I totally disagree with them, but by their logic, doesn't it make their radio show hypocrites for allowing New Japan to run an angle on their show? Well, it also makes them hypocrites for doing the Jericho Cruise, where there's an AEW banner right underneath them. So they're in the ring, in a ring, with an AEW banner around them. Also, I did a video already where I talked about various people and how they've done worse than Ariel Helwani. You know, this is an MMA reporter, you know, for the most part. So this is what Dave Shearer, this was his response. He says, first, I want to state that I didn't hear this interaction and frankly have no desire to do so. It was sent in by an elite member I have known for 20 years and trust. So I will answer it because I trust the sender. On to the subject. Helwani talked about how he was excited for the Chamber in his hometown on SmackDown and then did the pregame show. He wasn't part of an angle. With that said, I certainly would never appear on camera for WWE or any other company. But what Ariel Helwani does is different from what I do. I have no idea why Tony's brain works, but let's be real. Ariel Helwani is an interviewer, not a reporter. He's not Mike Johnson or the aforementioned Dave Meltzer. I can't say I am surprised by the statement, however, you sent in, that Tony Khan watches SmackDown in real time and tweets about it. At times, I wonder if he realizes that he isn't a fan who is an owner of the second biggest wrestling company in the United States, and what he says will have repercussions. The real issue was not Helwani, but rather the childish manner in which Khan lashed out. That is the top. That's what the topic should be, not name calling Ariel Helwani. It's like ignoring the Titanic sunk and talking about the great dinner that was served before the ship went down. Quote, journalists enabling Tony Khan is a big part of the reason why AEW's product is in the state that it's in. People like me have been calling out the flaws, trying to get them addressed because we saw this coming and we want the promotion to succeed. But that's another issue altogether. By any logic, allowing a wrestling promotion to run an angle on your supposed journalistic platform is egregious if you want to keep your credibility. If either of those instances show a lack of journalistic integrity, it's the latter, and they certainly should not be throwing stones at Helwani after they just ran an actual angle on their show. Wow. How about that? So it's all out there now, baby. These dudes are, it's the wrestling journalist rumble. These guys are going out. See, I didn't even know about the New Japan angle that they've been running on the show because I don't listen to Meltzer and Alvarez. I hear enough of their garbage through their various surrogates online. So it's not that much of a surprise to me. I think Booker T noted this thing pretty good because he spoke out on this. And I think it was fun. He says, quote, "It seemed like some high school stuff, man. It did not seem like something that a boss would be thinking about as far as Ariel Helwani making an appearance on WWE TV. The thing is, you never want to let someone see you sweat. You don't want to do that. You don't want to let someone see you're upset about something, and it seemed like Tony Khan was upset about Ariel making an appearance on WWE TV. After, I don't know, they had some kind of conversation or some kind of relationship. I could be wrong. I could be 100% wrong. But it seemed like he was pretty much butthurt a little bit about Ariel Helwani being a part of WWE Weekend in Canada. When you put yourself in a line of fire, you might get some shots. I think that's exactly what happened with that right there. Tony Khan bit on something that he shouldn't have. This should not even be a story today. It shouldn't. It shouldn't even be a story because it's a story because of Tony Khan. There again, I say, man, if you're going to be the boss, you got to act like the boss. You got to play that role. And you got to play it 100%. To me, it does not seem like Tony Khan got what it takes to be that guy. I'm serious. That's just me. I don't know if you saw Jonathan Coachman. He chimed in on it as well. Jonathan Coachman, he threw Ariel Helwani under the bus. He was talking about how much time he put into the business, and Ariel, who didn't know anything about the business, who couldn't even get into a UFC event anymore, and has the nerve to talk to wrestlers or disrespect wrestlers in a certain way, like such as Booker T. I'm like, wait a minute. Since when is Jonathan Coachman going to start defending me? I can defend myself. I don't need anybody defending me and throwing my name in there as far as me and Ariel Helwani having a beef. Ariel knows he had beef with me. Ariel and I have buried the hatchet. To bring my name up is wrong more than anything. Ariel Helwani apologized to me. Coachman, whatever you're trying to do, bro, if you got beef with Ariel Helwani, make it between you guys. Don't bring my name up in it. I just want to put that out there. I don't need help with anybody. So that's between Booker T and the coach and Ariel. But Booker T nailed it. Just for giggles, let's talk about Eric Bischoff, who also weighed in on this thing. Now, Bischoff is actually going to be pretty fair, so I want to give him some credit for that. Kudos to this. When Bischoff was asked about Ariel Helwani calling Tony Khan a snowman, he says, "I was disappointed to see that. Look, I've heard a lot of the same rumors, and I've heard them from people that are in AEW, to be blunt, and I don't put any stock in them. I think it's bad for him, no matter who you are, unless you were sitting down and watch anyone actually doing something, whether it's snorting a line of blow or, beating their wife or whatever, unless you witness it with your own eyes, shut the F up. Spreading rumors like that is a bad reflection, I don't listen to that. When I hear those things, I immediately shut down. When it comes to this, I don't really pay attention to it. If somebody comes to me and we're in the middle of a conversation, they say, throw something in there like that about Tony or anyone else, that's the end of the conversation as far as my participation goes. I won't be rude about it. I won't get up and walk away or confront someone. But in terms of actually paying attention or engaging in further conversation, I change the subject at that point. It's just bad. You don't want to do that to people I've had it done to me. There's no reason for it. Now, I 100%, I wouldn't go as far as to say the conversation is over, but I typically put gossip in a certain section of information that may be useful later, but for the most part, as far as I know, it's untrue, until you actually see it, or you get those vibes yourself. But the Tony Khan snowman, look, this was in response to this guy being called a fraud, you know? So you call me a fraud, I call you a cokehead, you know? I mean, it's a stiff jab. It may be uncalled for, but he called your integrity into question, you know, and seems weird. But here's what he's talking about Tony Khan. He says, quote, Tony Khan is inviting a lot of this criticism. He acts like a petulant child in the way he responds. And his response to Ariel in the crowd was a petulant child whose feelings were hurt because somebody took his toy away from him. I mean, it's just so absolutely childish. I think that's a reflection, at least in my mind, of who Tony Khan is. He's immature. He's a child with a vanity project. He's passionate. I'm not taking anything away from him. It's not like, you know, one eliminates the other. You know, his father's great worth, whatever, how many billions of dollars. What I heard, I don't know if it's true or not. Doesn't matter if it's true or it isn't. But I heard at some point Tony launched this thing with $100 million of money that his dad was going to leave him in his will anyway. So it was Tony's money, but it just came from his dad. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if he earned that $100 million coming up with a cure for cancer or whether he inherited it. In my opinion, it doesn't matter. But when you act the way Tony acts, the way he reacts to things, I think it furthers a negative impression of him. And Tony should never react the way he did to Ariel. Well, Ariel Helwani did go and attack Tony Khan by saying, you know, pulling the whole Nepo baby thing that, you know, AEW wouldn't exist without, you know, Daddy Khan and his billions of dollars, which everybody knows is true. So it's not like it's a personal attack. That is, it's a fact. You know, that's a verifiable fact. Tony Khan himself did not have the money to start AEW. He's spending his inheritance, which I think there might be some evidence to that. But let's say it's not. Let's say it's his dad using his dad's money. Then so what? It doesn't matter. Tony Khan is still running the company. So when Ariel Helwani went the whole calling Tony Khan a Nepo baby or whatever, it is what it is. You know, everybody knows that. That's the easy one to go to with Tony Khan because it's true. Everybody knows it is true. The cokehead thing, though, that one's kind of brutal because, you know, it's been bubbling under the surface for a while that a lot of people are looking at Tony Khan and saying this guy's got to be on something. He owns something. And that booger sugar. Look, man. Look, man. If he owned that Whitney, that's on him. Okay. That what they call it, that Britney Spears, that Christina Aguilera. That's all on him. All right. The nose candy. That's all on him. I am not going to attack the man for what he likes for his treats. But he's running a multi-million-dollar conglomerate here. He's negotiating with billionaires to get tens of millions of dollars. He's in tens of millions of dollars in salaries. And, you know, between the wrestlers and the off-screen talent, there's a lot of people, you know, who are watching him and watching what he does. That's why when I made my original video on this, I say, are you really surprised to see guys like Eddie Kingston constantly attacking each other and attacking other wrestlers and they have no decorum? Because look at Tony Khan. How can he, I don't even want to use the word discipline because it's very parental, but that's the appropriate word. How could he discipline a guy like Eddie Kingston or a guy like Andrade or a guy like Miro? Or some of these other guys who have jumped out of pocket on Twitter or backstage or whatever, when this is how he behaves. You know, it reminds me a lot of when Vince went on, you know, the Bob Costas thing and he got real angry and he snatched the paper out of his hand and got sat on the edge of his seat and got real threatening with Bob Costas. How people thought that was a really bad look for Vince and how that happens quite often with Vince, where he would get confrontational and try to intimidate people. Yeah. that's a bad look. That's why he stopped doing those things, you know? He stopped doing public appearances at some point because he knew that was a bad look. He was going out there to defend his talent, to defend the company and all that kind of stuff, which is righteous. Thumbs up. Defend your boys. But when you come out of it looking worse, you don't win that way. You know? And I could just imagine the crazy stuff Vince McMahon probably would have been tweeting in 1999. Just imagine if Vince McMahon had Twitter in 97 or 98 or something like that. He'd have been tweeting out some of the most raunchiest, ridiculous stuff ever. And I'm sitting back and Tony Khan hasn't reached that level yet. He hasn't reached, and Vince was not in any way shy about his like of the booger sugar. You feel me? And, you know, the liquor and the hose. You know, he was all about that. But what you're dealing with Tony is he's trying to keep everything bottled up. He's trying to keep everything in-house. But it's starting to leak out. And you don't help the matters when you put yourself in the center of this stuff. But overall, the worst thing about this is that it's not increasing the AEW brand. It's not in defense of the AEW brand. This is not in defense of AEW wrestlers or wrestling. At least when Vince went out there to, you know, try to bully Bob Costas, it was, hey, Bob Costas is attacking your talent. He's attacking your show, you know, the content that you produce, all this kind of stuff. That's one thing. This guy is upset about a personal slight between him and Ariel Helwani. This is personal. He's putting himself in the center of this situation. And to me, when a wrestling journalist or a boss or whatever is putting what they believe first, they're doing something wrong. You're doing something wrong when you put yourself first. You have to put the company first. You represent the company when you tweet. Even if you're not tweeting about the company, which is why Tony Khan has to watch what he tweets. If he was upset with Ariel Helwani, he should have sent him a text message. If he had his contact information. Maybe even he has, again, these things are like octopi. He has all kinds of people that he could talk to. And, you know, he could have those people cast aspersions on Ariel Helwani. Why not wind up somebody on like Busted Open Radio or the, you know, some other network and say, yo, Ariel Helwani showing up on WWE TV doesn't seem like he's unbiased. He seems like he's a biased, you know, reporter or whatever, yada, yada, yada. Tony Khan didn't need to say that. He could have just wound somebody else up and said it, or he could have just let somebody else say it. You know, him putting himself in the middle of this, him jumping out in front of there, raging out, is what's causing the problem. It seemed to me that Tony Khan is not ready for the position that he's in. He probably just needs to chill, lay low. But something tells me that on Dynamite, he's going to try to respond in some way. Either to the WWE unbiased reporter thing or to Ariel Helwani. He's going to try to respond. And it's not going to go well. But this channel will cover it. All right. I did the best that I could in bringing all this stuff together. Thank you guys for your time. Do all the YouTube things. I appreciate you. Talk to you guys later.